Programang ito ay rated SPG. Striktong patnubay at gabay ng magulang ang kailangan. Maaaring may masiselang tema, lengguwahe, karahasan, sexual, horror o droga na hindi angkop sa mga bata.
Warning. The following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Number 6. Guy beat his pregnant girlfriend to death in front of her kids, then beat her 8 and 6-year-old to death. Couldn't bring himself to beat the 2-year-old to death, so he threw him in the dryer and turned it on. Number 7. When I was a kid, one of my neighbors and his sister murdered their mom by bashing her head with a real heavy frying pan and then strangled her with a phone cord back when phones had cords, because the mother told the son that he couldn't take his underage sister out with him to a party. So they killed her and left her body in the closet and then went to the party like nothing happened. Number 8. I live in a rural county in England, so we normally don't have many crimes that you couldn't consider too bad. About 3 years ago, a 17-year-old girl I'd met once or twice went missing. She was popular and the community really pulled together in trying to find her. She was also the daughter of a detective who works in our town. Turns out she was murdered by another lad I'd also met a few times. He was a bit older, 22 I think. He seemed okay when I met him. A little cocky but nothing too unusual. He was a photographer who once staged a picture with one of my friends where she was hanging by the neck with a bag on her head. Pretty strange stuff, but I assume it was all named for the art. He'd been rejected by this girl, so he lured her to his house on the pretense of taking modeling photos. He strangled her to death when she got there and dumped her body miles away. Apparently, the cops found essays he'd been writing obsessively about her. He'd also taken pictures labeled before, during, after of her murder, so it was obviously premeditated. He was given a whole life sentence, which are very rare in the UK, so chances are he'll never get to see the light of day again. Number 9. My neighbor that became our family's friend had a nice stepdad. He used to give me rides sometimes. We live in a bad part of Miami, think inner city, not South Beach, and my nickname there was Smart Girl, because I'm the only one in the hood that went to college. Anyway, I moved away, and apparently one day my friend's mom told his stepdad she wanted to leave him. He went insane. He grabbed his gun and told her she's going to die before she leaves or something like that. My friend's little sister was there too and was crying the whole time. She was like 16. My friend stepped between his stepdad and his mom. His stepdad told him if he didn't move, he'll kill him too. He didn't move. He killed my friend. Then the mom. He turned to the girl and said he couldn't kill her and that he was so sorry. Then he killed himself. Number 10. The murder of Maddie Clifton. An 8-year-old girl went missing in Jacksonville, Florida, and became a huge national story in 1998. There was a massive hunt to find her by law enforcement and local residents. Everyone was looking. It's all anyone talked about. A week into the search, a mother went into her son's room while he was at school to clean it after the stench coming from it became overwhelming. His waterbed seemed to be leaking. When she looked more closely, she discovered Maddie's body stuffed inside the pedestal of the bed. The woman's son was only 14 years old. He said him and Maddie were playing baseball, and when he hit the ball, it hit Maddie in the eye, causing her to bleed. He said he panicked when he couldn't stop screaming and said his father was abusive and was afraid what would happen to him if she told on him. So he dragged Maddie inside, stabbed her 11 times, and beat her to death with a baseball bat. Horribly tragic story. Number 11. A woman murdered an expectant mother and cut the baby out, drove off, then called 911 in an attempt to pass the baby off her as her own. I was just off work around that time that night and definitely drove by the exact spot before they found the body. It's right off the highway. Creepy. Number 12. Our neighbor on our street was having an affair and decided it was a good idea to kill her husband, then burned the house down so she couldn't be with her pilot boyfriend. Stupid thing was her boyfriend used to come into our local bar, said he was never that serious about her and that she was clingy, even went so far as to try and get him to be her alibi. All this happened while we were on vacation. Weirdest trip home ever. Number 13. If you guys aren't aware of what's going on in the Philippines, most drug users, dealers are now being killed by unknown assailants. Just last week, we have 2 people dumped near where I live with their heads fully wrapped with tape and hands as well with a cardboard sign saying, "I'm a drug dealer, don't be like me," translated in our native language. Number 14. Grew up in a small town north of the Bay Area. While watching a documentary about Jim Jones, my teacher started crying. Found out several years Jones Church was in our town 2 miles from my house. And after everyone committed suicide in Guyana, they ran a list of names on the local news. A large number of previous students and their parents were on the list. The thing didn't go down in my town, but a whole generation where I grew up lost friends and families to that guy, and that church with the guard tower still stands to this day but with a different denomination. Number 15. When I was a baby, there was this nice couple that lived down the street from me. No kids, middle-aged, average couple. The wife and my mom wouldn't talk sometimes. Casual, pleasant, neighborly chatter. Apparently, this lady was total sweetheart and was loved around town. One day, my mom is driving home and the couple's house is surrounded by police cruisers. Turns out the wife committed suicide by shotgun. The problem was he shot herself twice. For months, they were investigating the husband. They were so close to having him the evidence that they needed to nail him for the murder. One day, my mom and grandma were going to the store. When they left, he was sitting in his driveway in his car. He waved at them as they left. When they got home, there are police and ambulance outside his house. He was slumped over dead in his car, suicide by carbon monoxide. They literally saw him as he was killing himself after he killed his wife. Yikes. Number 16. Andrea Yates drowning her 5 kids happened 5 minutes away. In our family still see her ex-husband and his new family on occasion. They were very nice. Number 17. Let's see, where's to start? This list doesn't even include the stuff related to the meth epidemic. 1990s, a guy cut another dude into pieces with a carving knife and stashed the body in the deep freezer in his apartment. The police only found them a week later. 2000s, a guy got into agreement with their cousin at the club, drove to their house and chucked a firebomb inside. The fire killed all 5 of their kids who were home at that time. Again, another guy heard that his estranged parents had a huge life insurance policy in their name. One night, he left home, drove to his parents' place in Iowa, and killed almost every 6 people with a shotgun. Then drove home to eat dinner while awaiting for the news. He was only caught because his 7-year-old niece hid in the closet the whole time, and she was able to tell who did it. Now, 2015 now, several fatal shootings and beatings that have killed a few people. Heroin epidemic. Oh, also, Michael Swango, aka Dr. Death, a serial killer known for poisoning victims. 4 to 60 true number unknown, worked as an EMT around the area here in 80s. So yeah, Central Illinois is just a low-key slang for Trevor Phillips Country. Number 18. Just happened this month. A mother of a 1-month-old punched her baby to death because she was tired of feeding it. She then blamed the father. F up. Number 19. Whitey here. I live in a small southeast town. Back in 80s, the town was still pretty segregated school-wise. Where the railroad tracks once ran through the town, it was the dividing line. South side of the railroad was probably 99.9% black. My backyard fence was a part of that dividing line. When I was 10, my parents fostered a black boy my age. He lived in my neighborhood, played in my baseball team. His dad went to prison up in New York, and the boy lived with us for years. He moved back when his dad got out, but 30 years later we still tell people we are brothers. Dee taught me a lot about the black community, especially about times when crimes are committed and the whole black community knows who did it. But don't tell because F the police or retaliation from criminal. We live 2 blocks from the closest convenience store arcade. People walking to the store from the south side of the tracks walk by my house. It wasn't the Wild West or anything. We may not have gone to the same school sometimes, but we only had one recreation department, so we played sports together, so we always saw people we knew at the store. But there was this one guy. For the late 80s, this dude was pretty out and flamboyant when it came to being gay. Remember those 70s and 80s shorts with a stripe? If you hung them just right, your balls were exposed. Anyway, dude used to walk up and down the street. Short, flip-flops, tank top, t-shirt, medium-sized afro, and usually sucking on a sucker. He was a very friendly. He wouldn't stop and talk. He acted like he was a girl. He was alright. My sister and her friend were nice to him. He stopped and talked to them if they were ever about. Fast forward, so the dude is found in the bathroom and ball field. He had been murdered. Just a big time. Beat the hell and back. And the story everyone has had as urban legends before. They had cut his dick off and put it in his mouth. His balls were in his hand and a broomstick had been shoved in his. No suspects. Year later, out in the county, a white sheriff's deputy off duty from another county happens to be in our jurisdiction checking on his parents' house. Happens to catch 2 black guys robbing the house. He shoots and kills both after a scuffle. Oddly enough, under routine drug tests because of the shooting, cocaine shows up in his system. The story is really fishy. Investigation goes on for a long time. The cops finally drop the case, declare it as a self-defense or what have. This is where my foster brother D comes into the play. Years later, we're in our 20s shooting the shit and somehow bring up the murder of the dude. I was like, I can't believe they never solved that case. D was like, who are you talking about? Everybody knew who did it. What? He asked. Remember the 2 black dudes of the duty cop killed breaking into his parents' house? Yeah, I remember that. Well, those 2 were the dudes who did it. Dudes that did it. Everybody in the hood knew it was them. They were always terrorizing everybody in the house they were breaking into and got caught. Drug deal. Those 2 dudes were dealing drugs and that white guy off-duty sheriff deputy from another county shoot them in the middle of the deal. So the 2 drug dealers, murderers, are murdered by a crooked cop. But in the end, I don't really consider that justice for our friendly neighborhood gay boy that probably never hurt a flea in his 20 years of life. You may not have love for that man or the police, but how can your community be silent when an innocent people got hurt? Number 20. Second week in my new apartment and my neighbors gets robbed and stabbed. I heard the whole encounter and I was the one that called the cops.